challenges and solutions in the next growth phase. It's an interesting time to review the kind of revenues that high content, low star power indie films are able to generate, as well as look at how the VOD world is perceiving the spending intent of the Indian market. And that's what the session really aims to do within the specificity of the Indian digital market as well as global best practices. Taking us through it, some of the best men in the industry. We have Satya Raghavan, Head of Content Operations, YouTube India. We have David Auerbach, Director, Digital Distribution Initiatives from the Film Collaborative. And we have Suri Gopalan, the CEO of Vista India. May I please invite you gentlemen on stage? And helping us navigate through this maze is Director-Producer Rohan Sippy.
Morning everyone, thanks for being here, and I think we're going to have a very interesting session, and we were chatting about it yesterday, and so I think a nice way to start it would be for David to take us through some of the work he's done to address, I think, hopefully the filmmakers here will get some insight from the process that David has been through many times. So to kick it off, I'd just like David to start it off with, we don't have too much time, so let's get moving on the presentation and then we'll through.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, NDC. Okay, so how do we get up? Here we go. All right, so my company is called the Film Collaborative, and we are a different kind of distributor. We're a non-profit in the United States. So in addition to being a kind of soup to nuts distributor, we have an educational mission, and our slogan is putting filmmakers first. And what this means is that we try as best we can to be transparent and help them not to be sort of taken advantage of by an industry that knows way more about distribution than they do. And for first and second filmmakers, first and second time filmmakers, they're really appreciative of having us as a resource. Although we offer complimentary educational services to filmmakers at every level, we mainly handle as clients films that have festival pedigree and specific niches. And the reason why these are the only films that we handle is because, and you'll understand this after I finish my presentation, that even with festival pedigree, it's still hard to get traction in VOD. And so, you know, for films that we feel like have market potential and are not coming to us too late, which is also a very important aspect here of really being organized in your distribution strategy, we do the very best we can for them. So our website is thefilmcollaborative.org. And today I wanted to talk about two case studies. We have two films, an Indian film that premiered at Mami last month, I believe, and it's called A Suitable Girl, and shot in verite style over a 4-year period. A Suitable Girl documents the arranged marriage and matchmaking process in India. The film focuses on educated, financially stable women raised with a mix of traditional and contemporary values in the urban cities of Mumbai and New Delhi. These women have access to the world in ways their mothers did not, yet their relationships with the institution of marriage are still complex, and the ways in which society molds them into traditional roles makes it nearly impossible for them to escape. The second film is not an Indian film. It's called The Untold Tales of Armistead Maupin, and I'm sorry. My notes are slightly obscured. Okay. Anyway, so The Untold Tale of Armistead Maupin is about a documentary about Armistead Maupin. For those of you who don't know, he is the author of the very successful book series, and which was made into a TV series called Tales of the City. which appeared in public television in the 1990s. And basically, he went from sort of the son of the conservative South in the United States to a liberal icon for LGBT community, and you know, basically, you know, dared everyone to sort of speak their truth. So it's a documentary about him, and it sets up two things in the film. One is that he has a book coming out that came out last month, and the other, which the filmmakers didn't know when they were making the film, was that there was going to be a remake made by Netflix. So that's an important factor here. So why use documentaries as examples? Well, narratives are generally harder than documentaries to sell, unless, of course, they have, you know, they happen to sort of break out. Like Paranormal Activity, or an example would be The Lunchbox, and they have name director and name cast. But documentaries can also appeal more narratives to a wider international audience because of just the topics that they reference. So here we have just basic information about how they premiered. A Suitable Girl premiered at Tribeca, and Armistead appeared in South by Southwest. One was in competition, the other was not. And A Suitable Girl won a jury award, and Armistead won an audience award. Now, at the Film Collaborative, you know, we get moving pretty quickly, and you know, we sort of have a lot of things going on when we think about sales, and there's sort of a plan A, a plan B, maybe even a plan C. And so plan A would be to try to sell a film out of the festival, and you know, and sort of an all rights deal, and then you know it's done. But that usually doesn't work with films at this level. More realistically is to try to get sort of an SVOD and broadcast deal for either worldwide or individual territories, and then sort of piece together a hybrid strategy over different territories. And so I just wanted today I want to talk about what happened with these films. And you know, most of these films are recent; they premiered in 2017. One thing that I want to talk about today is this new program by Amazon in the States called Amazon Video Direct Film Festival Stars. I don't know if many of you have heard of it, but basically it guarantees money for films that premiere in top A-list festivals such as Sundance, South by Southwest, Tribeca, and Toronto. In the case of A Suitable Girl, because the film was in competition, they were guaranteed $75,000 plus an enhanced rev share. So these are sort of options just as you walk into the festival, right off the bat. And so obviously they're trying to compete with Netflix. Now Netflix obviously can offer a lot more money than these fees. So you know, one of the things we tried to do is approach Netflix and see if they were interested. And unfortunately, with A Suitable Girl, they were not interested. And in the case of Armistead, they took a really long time getting back to us, and we didn't really know why. And then they announced that they were going to remake the series, and suddenly they were interested, and they accepted the film for a much higher price than they would have gotten with the Amazon Film Festival Stars program. And so it was a worldwide deal, and so we did not take the Amazon Film Festival Stars for that film. But for A Suitable Girl, they are going to do it. And then there's also, you know, public broadcast. We tried ITDS. They were not interested for A Suitable Girl, but they were interested for Armistead. And then the rest of the festival strategy is sort of, well, actually, before that, I just want to talk a little bit more about the Film Festival Stars program. So the condition of the program is that, so even though Armistead didn't take it, it would have, South by Southwest is in March, and they have 11 months before the SVOD has to start. So, and then Tribeca starting in April, 11 months and then SVOD has to start. So really, this is compressing the window very, very significantly. And it's one of the reasons why you really have to be organized in your distribution strategy. Because during that time, you have to do festivals. And at the Film Collaborative, one of the things that we're known for is sort of monetizing the film festival circuit in the form of screening fees. We view festivals as its own form of hybrid theatrical. And you know, some films, the range can be $10,000 to $100,000 in festival revenue. So that's one thing that we don't want to curtail. You know, then there's a theatrical and then transactional. All have to fit in before this subscription thing starts. And you know, there's regulations about how many how many days you have to have between transactional and subscription to have a proper, you know, cable VOD release. And so, you know, there's just not enough time to do everything. And something has to give in this strategy. There's also educational distribution that we can do. But my point is that that you have to scramble to get everything done. And especially since in the United States, lots of the festivals happen in the later part of the year, September, October, November. It really is challenging to make everything work. So the rest of the distribution strategy worked out with festivals. Sorry. Armistead did much better in terms of the revenue generated. I can't give the exact numbers, but it was roughly 8 times greater than the revenue generated by Suitable Girl. Educational, both of them went to different companies. And we did not do a theatrical for A Suitable Girl, but we did do one for Armistead, a small one. Excuse me. And for transactional, they're going DIY with this on these platforms, and we actually were able to get an iTunes exclusive for 2 weeks for Armistead. And that's really, my perception is that's only because Armistead has a book that came out and they won across. So, you know, pretty cynical, but I think that's the reason why they're interested in featuring it. We don't know about A Suitable Girl yet for transactional in terms of feature placement. Excuse me. So some of the advantages that Armistead have are obviously that it's a known entity or a famous person, but it's debatable whether Armistead is really that famous outside of countries like the US or even the UK. Has a lot of audience appeal, hence it won the Audience Award. As I mentioned, the concurrent book deal was also at the press to kind of collateralize the film and cross-promotion. And of course, then there's the Tales of the Sea revival. And stars can promote the film. There's a number of stars that are interviewed in the documentary, and we're hoping they'll promote the film as well. You know, the public broadcast is actually going to be in January, so really we're talking about 1 month of transactional here before maybe no one's going to want to buy it. They're all going to just want to rent it on Netflix. So it's quite difficult to really have enough time for things to grow. Now for Suitable Girl, I just want to talk a little bit about what we tried apart from the Amazon Film Festival Stars program. Arte considered it. The BBC passed. Al Jazeera wanted less money than they would have gotten from the Amazon Stars program, and we even tried to ask them to do a 25-minute version that wouldn't compete, but in the end that didn't work. ITVS, as I said no. And POV, they could not commit to it for 2017, and 2018 is still unknown. We were talking to Cinestan, and they were very nice, but their projections for the film were only $20,000 outside the US. And in the end, we didn't make it work. We also work with a sales partner in Europe who tries to, work with various European TV stations all over the EU and there was very little traction. It did not get picked up at all. So this was really, really disappointing because we thought we had an award winner from Tribeca. It would be so easy for us to get traction, and it was actually quite difficult. There's one other South Asian film that we handled that did better in festivals. It was a narrative, and it had a famous Indian actress in it. And really, the end result is it was pretty much the same, except for festivals, as A Suitable Girl. And these are the companies that might have been interested in licensing it, but I don't think they really don't take on very many indie films in the end. They have in the past, but not every year. And so, before we open it up to the rest of the panelists, just a few takeaways, that if your film has any chance of getting into a A-list festival, it's really important to carve out the Amazon Film Festival Stars program when you're talking to your sales agent, because they should not have any right to this money. They didn't do any work for it. Your film is in the festival. That should not be part of your arrangement. So be careful about that. It's really difficult to distribute any film outside the producer territory. And it's not just about indie films, it's about anything. And even Armistead, with its wide appeal in the US, if it weren't for the Netflix deal, we would pretty much be in the same position as A Suitable Girl. Because it just doesn't translate necessarily. And so it's really important to think about how your film can appeal to international audiences. What is the appeal? How is that going to work? And I'm just going to skip ahead because I know we're running a little long. One of the things that we ask is, with every film, is what is the niche that you're trying to engage? And it's very difficult just to have a film with no stars in it that no one's going to notice, because there's no way to catch on to it. Like, people have to have a reason to go to the theater, to actually spend their hard-earned money to buy it. And it's not just about marketing, it's about getting it in front of people and making them care. And I know we're running a little long, so I'm just going to end there and get the panelists.
Thanks so much, David. It's a really illuminating way to look at the trajectory, how many different circumstances affected, and but lots of insights when you're planning things going ahead for what can help. And now, Sunil, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So it was funny, and I'm glad David, sort of gave a detailed presentation. And if you just look at the journeys of those two films, the revenues, Sanjay, were abysmal, right, to the cost of production. And in India, we're making 1,400 films, okay, a year in many different languages. And while we talk about this great world of digital and consumption, selling these films are very, very hard. The platforms are extremely choosy, and like it or not, what we've seen even in our company is that everybody is vying for that, those big releases. So unless you have a box office hit, it becomes very difficult to sell in the digital market. So for us as a company, right, we've been very bullish about transactional video on demand, where individual customers will pay. Now, what we've seen there is that there's essentially iTunes and Google Play that provide us, that opportunity. Amazon in India is on a pure SVOD. The transactional business for us has been growing much slower than we thought. Internationally, we tend to do a little better, right? But I think that as indie filmmakers, right, if one could really use and be able to market the film using social media and YouTube, in a very smart way and translate it directly into the transactional platforms. Because in YouTube, you can price a film as low as 25 rupees. And if you can successfully mount a social media campaign, you could effectively drive 150,000 transactions in India, which for an indie film is pretty good. You know, it's at least you post in the event that your theatrical window is only like a couple of weeks. If we could really focus on the transactional part, where the filmmaker really needs a plan. So far, we've not seen any particular case where the filmmaker has taken the initiative to plan a transactional media campaign, and I'd like to see if what that could be like. Given the fact that you don't have an assured sale on the SWOT window, because they're all running after that limited films that have done commercially well. So that's been my observation, Rohan.
Yeah, I think it's nice also, and exploiting the T-word still leaves the option open for SWOT, right?
Exactly.
It's earlier, right, that you would exploit. So I think it's a great time for Satya to jump in. I think I'm talking about Google Play and...
Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest takeaways that I had after looking at your slides and listening to you is that I think the creative filmmaker, apart from, he's very good, or he or she is very good at their art, but now increasingly looks like they have to also understand science, right? Which is, first of all, my compliments for having such a beautiful slide presentation which spells it out so well. I think, but even if you take the archetypical creative filmmaker, for them to think through that tabular nature of that slide is something that I think is a great opportunity, right? If they can understand that and master that, and then see, okay, here's how I have to window my things properly. Here's how I now have a T-word opportunity. And I would have loved to actually see what happens to those two movies in year 2 and year 3. How do opportunities then kind of phase out after that, right? I mean, there might be a long tail T-word window or an S-word window thereafter. And coming back to the point you made, which is growth of T-word, I think we are at a very interesting tipping point right now. If you just take a step back as to what has happened in the last 4 years, right? I love sharing these numbers every time with people because it's fundamentally eye-opening. So all of you know that India now has about 400 million people connected to the internet. But it wasn't that huge till about 2 years ago. It was actually less than half of that. But things like Jio, the telcos, all of them coming in and opening it up has really given a huge push to that number. And fundamentally, all of us started to pay for things on the internet only about 3.5 years ago, and it happened on e-commerce. All of us here have bought something and there's a parcel waiting at home for us when we get back, I'm sure of it. But in the last 2 years is when we've learned to pay for content, right? So which is why if a filmmaker now says that, okay, let me understand how the winds have changed, let me understand the science of marketing a movie, let me then take advantage of technology that can help me reach out to my niche, right? Let me identify my niche very well. I think it's great times for a filmmaker going forward. But having said that, there will still be enough and more people who will do it well, but there will still be a whole lot of people who will need a lot of focus, right?
How much do you think the T-word export depends on getting the promotion and the theatrical release? So you're talking about even if you don't go that way, is that a good option? I mean, just as a...
I think that a lot of filmmakers, right, make a film without thinking of who they're making it for, and I think that as an independent filmmaker, you're raising your money privately. You have to actually look at the whole business, which is like, if I don't get a theatrical, how can I exploit the transactional window? If I don't get a Netflix buy or an Amazon Prime buy, who are my other buyers in this marketplace, right? So I think that as an independent filmmaker, the right thing would be to probably have a business person on your side,
I think like David said, a plan A, B.
Plan A, plan B, plan C.
Scenarios in mind and kind of a deadline to figure out.
To be fair, the plan A, plan B, plan C thing was more of a hybrid strategy where some people feel like they're going to sell if they go to like one of those industry festivals, and then they don't have any contingency for if that doesn't happen. And so you have to have a lot of balls in the air, and especially since the Amazon Stars program came along, that's the plan C, sort of, Plan B would be sort of
floor you can kind of.
Plan B would be sort of to have a hybrid strategy where you sell different rights to different distributors. But back to what you were saying about paying for content, I always ask filmmakers, well, how do you watch films? And I'm sorry if this is offensive to anybody, but I think filmmakers can be some of the cheapest consumers when it comes to film. They don't want to pay for anything. They just want to watch it on Netflix. Like, it's like if two filmmakers meet each other and they want to watch each other's films, it's like a calling card to say my film's on Netflix, and therefore you don't have to pay any money. It's an inconvenience to ask someone to pay for your film, but it's really true. I mean, considering all of the great content out there for television, where people can just go on Netflix and watch, people are starting to, not want to pay for content at all. And so I feel like transactional is going away in some ways, and that's true of the music industry. I mean, if the film industry went the way of the music industry.
You're saying the way that subscriptions have taken over completely from buying iTunes kind of.
Right. But I think that what people forget is that you listen to a song more than once. You get obsessed with a song and you keep listening to an album, whatever.
Satya keeps getting clicks when you keep listening to songs in India.
Exactly. But with a film, how many times can you watch it? And the rev share for Amazon Prime outside the U.S. is 6 cents an hour. I mean, that's just terrible. So, but I mean, it can add up, but that means a lot of people have to watch, so it's
which is why in a market like India, I think it's a fascinating place for this laboratory to actually really figure out and push the edges of every model. So I still think that both advertising, transaction, and subscription is going to coexist in a large manner, right? I mean, just the sheer number of people who are here, and I think there's going to be rapid acceleration of specialization. So while you have an Amazon, you have a Netflix, I know of many such platforms in international countries which only focus on documentaries. So I forget the name, but there's a Turkish brand, it's a platform which only, you can only subscribe to documentaries. Now that hasn't happened in India yet, right? So, but those things will happen pretty rapidly.
But are these major plans on the SVOD side for YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our SVOD business in now 7 countries. So the way we operate is just a little different. We like to fine-tune the model, go country by country, and eventually go across most of the countries in the world. India till about 2 years ago was it was a slow-growing market, but now all of a sudden India is the fastest growing market in the world. So yeah, I mean, we will definitely look at India as a market at some point in time. It will happen at some point in time.
But I just wanted to point out that we've got Amazon, Netflix, which are global guys, but I feel that there's a whole slew of new guys coming on. Z is becoming very aggressive. They're launching something like Hotstar. Times Group has been talking about something. Jio is here. So for us as Indians, man, it's a great time to be a content creator because how many dangals are there? There's just one dangal which has been bought by maybe a Star and Netflix on a window. But there's all these other platforms need content. So I think it's a great time to make content. And if you can make good content, which is relevant to the young millennial audience, you will find a buyer. And if your budgets are tight, the Indian channels frankly pay a decent amount of money. Just when you flash those numbers, those are billions for us here. So we've got a domestic market, and I feel that our domestic business is good enough. We don't necessarily. I mean, it'd be great to have the whole world, but I feel that our own country, we've got a whole bunch of telcos are in the game. Satya, would it be safe to say that at least, maybe $500 million will come into the market in terms of all these platforms buying?
Much more than that.
Much more than that? Yeah, so hell, that's a win-win for all of us here.
I guess one of the nice things with this form of distribution is in a country like India where you have so many kind of expat communities, it's a great way if you're making regional content to reach them all across the country using these kind of technologies, right?
Absolutely. In fact, Satya was just telling us that interesting case study of Tamil films which are, or regional films which are dubbed, and it does supremely well on the YouTube platform.
Absolutely, that's the power of India as a market and just within India, right? I mean, think about 60 million people in Tamil Nadu who ought to be seeing your content, whether it is in Hindi or whether it is in Assamese, right? Think about 100 million people from Uttar Pradesh who might want to see your content, whether it is in Tamil or not. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing, simple Telugu movies do really well in Hindi. And when it goes into Hindi, it also does well in international markets, right? So, but yeah, those are big movies. I think formats that are shorter than the classic movie, like the documentary or the short film, those are all places where there will be such evolution in the next few quarters as well.
And the vast majority of this is mobile consumption, or?
Yeah, I mean, on YouTube right now, 85% of our consumption is on the mobile.
But even the keyboard and stuff is mobile?
So that is actually showing some interesting variations, right? So we're seeing people buy movies but see it on the TV screen, purely because it's now so easy to either cast or just have a smart TV, right? I mean, you can have a smart TV for 30,000 rupees now, and
So you've got the app built in. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So our message is exactly what you said. So this is a fantastic time to be a creator, but understand the science. Spend as much time on the science as you do on the art.
yeah, I think that's a good way for us to now just get into a couple of audience questions, if anyone's got anything.
What are you doing to fight piracy?
So YouTube is actually, I presume you asked me the question. Hey. Yeah, absolutely. No, so actually YouTube ends up being perhaps one of the better places to fight piracy. But you've got to make sure that your film is loaded onto YouTube in an unlisted manner to fight piracy in the first place. I'll give you the classic.
In which manner?
It's an unlisted thing, unlisted link, right? Because we basically take a fingerprint of every piece of content that gets uploaded, and then we are able to match it using all those superior algorithms or whatever. And the minute there is an instance of piracy, then you get a message and then you decide what to do. I'll give you the case study of Dangal, one of the biggest movies of this year. So I think it released on 26th December 2016. So Dangal, because of brands like Disney and UTV and all that behind it, they obviously understand the power of platforms like YouTube. So they would have uploaded the entire movie in an unlisted fashion about 2 to 3 days before it released. That gives us enough time to generate all fingerprints, all variations of fingerprints, because the Indian consumer is very clever. They will reduce the movie and they will put it in a frame and all those kind of things. But that gives us enough time to make sure that all those tips and tricks are taken care of. And very, very little instance of Dangal then being available elsewhere. And think about it, the biggest movie. And in fact, I know NFDC is planning something where they can give that kind of a service to the long tail. I presume some of those announcements will happen at some point of time. But at least on YouTube, our request is that whether you're a documentary maker, or whether you're a short film maker, or a movie maker, put your content up in an understood manner so that we can do the hard work of making sure that your content is protected, at least on YouTube.
What are the reasons behind the restrictions for certain countries? Like some videos are available worldwide and some videos are restricted by region.
Why some content available in some regions, not all? I guess that's probably just to do with rights for that. Or
Typically, a filmmaker, right, sells by country. That is how you monetize. So unless you do a global deal, where you get X amount of money and you've sold it forward. Usually for bulk of filmmakers, they sell by territory. They would sell Turkey and maybe Norway separately. So that's how you actually monetize your product, which is why you would find it available in certain territories and in certain territories it's not right.
Again, it goes back to the science of it, right? As a filmmaker, you have to understand how nuanced it has become now, right? So even if you've sold to Amazon in India, you actually have the rest of the world open for other platforms, right? If you want to reach out to, I think, I say this everywhere, there's an island called Saint Kitts. I don't know where it is, but there's an island called Saint Kitts. And Saint Kitts has Indians in it, okay? Surprise, surprise. Who are watching, all that content which is coming on YouTube. So, you want to reach out to people in Saint Kitts, there's an opportunity for you to do that as well, right? So you have to understand the science. I go back to that again.
Also, but even if a filmmaker wants to do worldwide, it's sometimes very difficult, just from a formal technical aspect. For example, with iTunes, they want a sort of seamless experience for the end user in every single territory. And that means that one has to localize for every country that's not in the language that the film was produced in. And you have to have subtitles, you have to have key art that's translated, and you have to have metadata that's translated for every single language that you want to be in. And that's a lot of money for a filmmaker who is working at the level of our filmmakers have no money left to produce. It's roughly about $1,000 to produce one language of subtitles.
Yeah, but I guess that we were talking that seems to be also a trend where the big guys are seeing opportunities of localizing. It is more work, but that is also the opportunity with the content to make it play out. Yeah.
Usually when you sell to Netflix, they will require you to produce maybe 13 different languages at the minimum. And sometimes they pay
subtitling or dubbing? Okay.
So sometimes they pay for it, but sometimes you have to sort of negotiate that into it.
Right.
Hi. I'm addressing that to Satya as taking a step back and following on from the gentleman talked about piracy. Everybody, even where I live in England, doesn't have access to broadband and internet. Although I absolutely appreciate, although I'm dumb because I don't know much technology, that YouTube has the power of technology to control that. But just in England, Goa, Delhi, Bombay, everywhere, every beach you go on, they have bundles of these DVDs selling pirated. And in England, again, those people who have no access to internet buying those pirated DVDs, which saddens me, and it makes me obviously as a practitioner very, very worried, because obviously you're losing that revenue. I really don't know how you can control that. But there has to be some kind of policing.
Absolutely, I think subtext of his question was, as a broader scheme of things, how is piracy being controlled, right? What we have often seen is that most of the piracy actually happens at source, which is, somebody close to that environment where the movie is produced.
Inside or within that system
is where it happens at source. We've seen it in the watermarks that come out there, right? So I still think we are better off in India from what we were a few years ago. And Rohan, you should perhaps tell us about how the overall industry is doing a bunch of things.
Yeah, I think that it's just a lot of legwork. You have to follow up, you file complaints. So I think it's a constant process, and I think it's a little bit of this lock and key pirates who keep trying to break whatever system you set up, but you have to keep. I think it's an eternal thing that with each technology they also keep trying to find ways to hack it, right? So, but I think it's generally getting a little better. But I mean, the interesting thing is we're also dealing with a younger generation that expects the piracy in a way is kind of a control, right? So these are the very philosophical, fundamental thing at the root of the work we're doing is what is the windowing we should be looked at? Or is it cool, like Mr. Kamal Hassan a few years ago, and I thought it was a reasonably visionary move to try and go day and date in other parts of the country with Vishwarupam, which is if you're a Tamil speaker, where your film's not going to be playing in cinema, it's a wonderful way to, reach that audience. But it also comes down to the root of what is our business about. Is it about going to the cinema? Is it keeping it sacrosanct? So I think these are...
I believe that every succeeding generation, and now generations are measured in 5 years, I think, right? Every succeeding generation in clusters is starting to be more and more responsible, right? So obviously, I think the same kind of consciousness that the people in a Bombay or a Delhi have now about piracy will not be there in a tier 2 or a tier 3 town. But it will happen at some point of time. They will understand that it's a better viewing experience to view it, in a much better environment. So,
also, I'm a believer that if you're going to consume media in that way, you're not going to be paid for it. Like if suddenly that was taken, if that film that you
Exactly.
If you're the kind of person who watches subscription, that's how you're going to consume the film. You're not going to all of a sudden pay for it on transactional. If you're the kind of person who does torrenting or illegal DVDs, you're going to just watch something else that you can get your hands on. So I'm skeptical as to whether it's really, you can really personalize it on a per film basis where, something that's been wronged, in some way because of the piracy. But generally, we have not had very many problems with piracy at the film level that we're on. Like, we don't have big stars, and so it's not
I would say even piracy, I don't know, it's probably the wider the content, probably when you get deeper into the niches or something, I guess I'm assuming it's probably less of an issue.
Actually, we published a case study book a couple of years ago, and one of the case studies was filmmakers who actually decided to release their film widely on torrent. And actually they ended up making a lot of money just because it got so popular that eventually people started buying it. It's a sort of form of marketing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they had an episode of Game of Thrones leaked this year as well, right?
Exactly, and then it was even more popular.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sridhar Rangai. I basically make very niche films like films on gay and transgender subjects. For me, it's been an exciting time right now because I made a film in 2002 and sold it last year to Netflix. And for me, that is something which could have never been sold earlier as a short film. And I did a documentary which again got sold to Netflix. For me, something like a time like this with Netflix and Amazon, I think for people who make content which is like off the mainstream or off the mainstream, it's a very exciting time.
Not just off the mainstream, I think David mentioned this, like you are addressing a world outside the film community as a very strong presence of people who are interested outside of movies, interested in your subject.
But my question is actually, what does the aggregators actually do to promote the content? They acquire it, whether it's YouTube or sometimes it's left to the filmmakers to aggressively promote it. Sometimes it's a bit tiring for the filmmaker to really continuously do that. I think it could be a responsibility of everybody to promote it because everybody's earning that particular money from that particular pie. So what are the strategy? Do you all have a strategy on that?
Very good question.
I want to pick up on just one thing which you said, which is the filmmaker getting tired. So I did a startup a few years ago, and my job was to actually run the startup, but I found myself continuously raising money all the time, right, to make the startup then go ahead. So think like an entrepreneur is what I would say. Every filmmaker should understand that it's a business that they've created which has franchise value, and what do you then do to make it successful? If you have to continuously be shopping, and I hope you haven't been shopping for 15 years, I think you took a break in between, but if you have to continuously shop, do it, right? Because there is opportunity out there, but you have to just figure out where it is, right? You have to know what Suri does, you have to know what David does, and get into understanding all of that. Do you want to
Short answer is you're going to have to keep working.
From our side, we provide a service, right? And we do not have the internal resources to also be marketing. Either that or you can go to Mr. Jayantilal Gada and sell the film upfront, and he will then come to us.
Is it possible, in general, I guess, to either have a alliance with ours, like a social media, you can recommend to a producer that this might help, it's your decision to do it, but this is one way.
Absolutely. And I think it's every filmmaker's responsibility also, in a way, to have a marketing budget or a distribution plan, right? Because in the event, most indie films have to, at the end of the day, it's much harder to sell an independent film than it is to sell a film with a commercial film, okay, which has already got inbuilt stars and it's got a paper profit or a paper loss or whatever it might be. So So I think the task is that much harder. But I do believe that, and we try our best to try and, with our own resources, do what we can. So in the case of iTunes, we try to get your homepage, we try and talk to the relevant platform, try and push that content. That is what we can do because we don't have a marketing budget dedicated to your film. Our margins just don't permit that. We're in the service business. So I see your point, but I'm glad that you located. The main thing is that you found a demographic and you work backwards in terms of understanding the demographic and producing something for them, right? That I think is what is got you a sale, as opposed to just saying.
Also, I guess it gives him a better opportunity in the future if he continues going deeper in that niche to. Now the next film, but also there's a much better chance of getting these sales and traction.
Absolutely.
Even though you've sold your product, I don't know what arrangement you have with Netflix. Let's assume for a minute you have a rev share or a residual agreement going on. It is still in your interest to now push it further. Don't now just rely on Netflix, right? Go onto YouTube and figure out how you can reach out to the LGBT communities, right? Not just in India, but across the world.
And market where that film performs, your next film, you can look to a better deal.
And I'll tell you something, right? Netflix, what we've seen in some of our renewal deals, we're getting more than the original license fee because the film is doing very well in the service. So it's up to you to try and keep promoting that on social media, because that would significantly increase your renewal,
And it's also important to realize that you need to be your own brand. From the moment you start making the film, it's a long process, but you have to get people interested in you as a director and what you have to offer. And if you have a niche for your films, partner with organizations that have the same goals as you and use their mailing lists to get the word out. The notion that an aggregator or a distributor is going to be able to market your film better than you is just nonsense. I mean, you really are the key to the community that you're trying to represent in your film. So especially if you have a niche, if you're lucky enough, I'm not lucky, but if you're dedicated to having a type of film that has a niche, you have an advantage over all the other filmmakers who have never even thought of that. So you should partner with as many people as you can. Get an active Facebook following. Do a social media campaign. Get an email newsletter, and save as you make your film. Save like bloopers or deleted scenes to offer as teaser content to get people sustained interest. I mean, it takes a really long time to make a film and then to distribute a film, 3 or 4 years, right? And so you have to sort of save things that will keep people interested all that time. One of the ways you can do it is to do a crowdfunding campaign and save the emails for the people who contributed and get them to help you along every step of the way. There's a lot of techniques that you can learn to keep people interested and use your fans to promote your work.
I love it how we have so much to say with this particular question, because it's fundamentally us passing the buck back to you.
No, it also opens up, I think I'm thinking about also open up an opportunity for new kind of marketer / distributor, right, who's providing a service, who can help if they're dealing with 10, 20, 30 films a year, they can probably go out and help.
On that point, I'd love to point people towards what I call the Guneet Monga model, right? It's pretty much like what you do, but she did something very interesting for the independent / good movie space in India by helping them reach out to a whole lot of festivals, right? So she didn't exist till about 3 years ago in that sense. So there's more opportunities like that. I mean, you yourself can now become a distributor / promoter for other films of your ilk.
And I did mention that Film Collaborative has an educational component to it, and I really mean that. We have free case study books that we publish on Amazon and iBooks that you can get and read about what other filmmakers have done and get ideas, and many of those ideas might be right for your film. So if you're confused about how you can, what you should do, read some of those case study books and see what other filmmakers have done. Talk to other filmmakers about the same problems that you have, and that's how you.
And everything he said is what fundamentally YouTube creators do every day in and out, right? For them, their life cycle for a movie is not a year or 2 or 3, it's a week. So they're continuously producing content and then they move on to the next piece of video. But they're doing all of this in that short cycle, you know.
Hi, Sanjay Suri, producer, actor. Specific question to Satya, while, and an observation, while in your presentation, that window, pretty much the early bird advantage everyone wants. So precisely the reality is it doesn't work in India. Day-and-date release, what Mr. Kamal Hassan had said, is the only option because of course piracy, and also to be fair to the filmmakers, somewhere we have tea makers to deal makers. Everyone cannot be a deal maker, but we'll make tea on a set and take that shot. So there's also certain kind of fatigue that sets in. That's just an observation. But Satya, while just going ahead 2 years, I heard you last year here, I think last year. And YouTube is synonymous to video, like Xerox was to photocopying or something, Surf was to detergents. What's holding you back with YouTube Red in India? Because there's a habit change now with SWOT, where Amazon also said flip-flops and phones, right? This is a value-added service. So YouTube is very synonymous to video. In fact, at production level, they consider film and oh, it's video for YouTube you're making. It could be a web series. Oh, YouTube. So YouTube is video, right? Non-film is YouTube. So what's holding you back for pay-per-view model in India? That's linked to Suri, because Suri, if you're seeing a growth in TVOD, because SVOD is a big habit changer, you know. So
Nothing is holding us back. Why do you think I've been coming over the last 4 years? I have all your cards.
yes. But before this habit is completely irreversible, it's going to be very difficult for people to spend money. While we like getting a deal, but on movies, when it's simultaneously available here and there, and while exciting time, all these broadcasters are coming in and all, they are not paying. They're mostly ad rev, and they just give you like peanuts, including the big names. You kind of the new entrants. The reality is different. So YouTube, where you're used to going there, okay, it's $25, $100, I don't mind, I'm used to that ecosystem. So 4 years you've been thinking about it, or like how many more years?
The content guys, because I think it's available in India, and you can get a lot of content about the rights holders.
Exclusive to certain channel partners, right?
No.
The TVOD is...
Yeah, the TVOD business, you can see,
I'm talking the TVOD on YouTube, not S1.
You're talking about the TVOD, right?
Yeah.
Google Play.
Yeah.
But for YouTube, sorry? Yes.
That's the S1.
That's S1.
I'm saying, when are they opening up?
Yeah, no, so that, as I said, right, that is something, we've launched it now in 7 countries. We only launched it in the US maybe 18 months ago or so. So we will eventually launch in many other countries, including India. I don't have visibility as to when we will do it. But for us, the 2018, 2019 are great years, purely because of all that has happened in the last couple of years. More people learning how to pay. So because see, at the end of the day, YouTube is a mass product, right? So we have to think about how the platform and everything else is ready for literally anyone who wants to do it, whether it is my cook or whether it is someone in a smaller city. So it will happen now. As to when, I don't know, it will happen.
I think
Facebook is going quite aggressive on video. Right?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic time, as I said, right? Fundamentally, till about 6 to 12 months ago, it was only me going to an advertiser and knocking on their doors and telling them, digital, all of that. But think about what has happened in 2017. And it's fundamentally beautiful when you think about it that way. And I can tell you from my own example. In 2000, I was a part of the .com boom or bust that happened. And I was part of a business that was trying to do something in the digital advertising space. But at that point of time, the digital advertising was only 0.1% of the overall advertising. And all of us were jumping within that, trying to create $1 billion industry, right? How stupid were we? I did it again in 2008, 2009. But then it was not more than 2 or 3%, right? But in 2017, digital advertising has gone beyond 10% of the overall advertising pie. It's now at 13%. So think about, go back to that book, Tipping Point. Tipping points are happening very subtly. We have learned to pay, but it's only happened in the last 3 or 4 years. So, thoda be patient. right? Good things will happen.
So to filmmakers, don't sell away your rights for 10 years or 20 years, unless the opportunity cost is like, attractive to you.
I think that's all we have time for. Any comments to wrap up? Otherwise, thank you, David, Suri, Satya, and I hope there's some things you take out from the session. I learned a lot, so thank you, everyone.